The Italian Wine Podcast is the community-driven platform for Italian wine geeks around the world. Support the show by donating at ItalianWinePodcast.com. Donate €5 or more and we'll send you a copy of our latest book, My Italian Grape Geek Journal, absolutely free. To get your free copy of My Italian Grape Geek Journal, click Support Us at ItalianWinePodcast.com or wherever you get your pods. Grazie mille. Official media partner, the Italian Wine Podcast, is delighted to present a series of interviews and highlights from the 2023 Wine2Wine Business Forum, featuring Italian wine producers and bringing together some of the most influential voices in the sector to discuss the hottest topics facing the industry today. Don't forget to tune in every Thursday at 3 p.m. or visit theitalianwinepodcast.com for more information.
So thank you very much to all of you to be here tonight. I'm very honored and proud to present you Peter Mondavi Jr. He's the second son of Peter and Blanche Mondavi and grandson of Cesare and Rosa Mondavi, the Napa Valley pioneers who purchased the historic Charles Krug Winery in 1943. With his brother Mark, he is immersed in the stewardship of Charles Krug Winery and vineyards and steadfast in succession planning for the future of the family legacy. Peter's passion is working to reinforce Charles Krug Winery as one of Napa Valley premier estates, centering of the family tradition of innovation and quality. Peter will talk about the family expansion into the import business, which started in Bordeaux in 2020, and then in 2022, they added also an Italian wine producer, Valdo, from the very famous Bolla family. He will tell us how to establish the foundation of a successful supplier-importer relationship between family-owned business for a long-lasting and mutual beneficial relationship. And I think that this is a subject that interests many wine producers because we cannot, if we want to be successful worldwide, we have to consider first, after our domestic market, definitely the American market. My family, my company started to export in 1972, and it was my father who had the vision to expand the export business to the US. And then I started working in the family business in 1983. And the American market is the one from which I learned the most. I learned to communicate. I learned how to have a good business relationship with importers, with retailers, etc. So I think that the subject that Peter will cover is very interesting for all of us. So please join me in welcoming Peter Mondavi.
Thank you, Marilisa. What I'd like to do is just start with a brief PowerPoint that helps explain our complex family. I'm going to stand up for this so you have a better view. So this is one of our historical state buildings, the carriage house built in 1881 by the founder, Charles Krug. But really want to go to the story of my grandparents, Cesare and Rosa Mondavi, born in Italy in the Marche region. They got married in 1908, immigrated over to the United States. What's interesting is our family has no winemaking background in Italy, but they immigrated to Minnesota, did some business in the grocery store business. Prohibition set in, and given that my grandparents were dealing in fresh produce in the grocery business, started to ship fresh wine grapes from California out to the area to sell to the local Italians to make homemade wines. So this was our introduction to wines. If it weren't for Prohibition, I probably wouldn't be here talking about wines. So let me go through the family tree here. My grandparents, Cesare and Rosa, I mentioned them, purchased, as Marilisa said, purchased the Charles Krug Winery in 1943. By the way, Charles Krug Winery was founded in 1861, making it the oldest winery in Napa Valley. My dad, Peter Sr., on the right here, and my uncle Robert ran the winery together, building it up. And 1966, my uncle Robert left Charles Krug Winery, started his winery, of course, Robert Mondavi Winery. And then about a decade later, Robert still had ownership in Charles Krug Winery. Dad bought out his ownership, and from that point forward, Charles Krug, our winery, has been wholly owned by my dad's lineage in the family. And then Robert sold the winery in 2004, and then we move on to the next generation, the third generation in the family. I'm on the far right there, and then with my brother Mark, also active in the winery. And then our cousins, Tim, Michael, and Marcy. Then we're moving into the fourth generation here, which all to certain degrees are engaged and passionate about the wine industry. Of the fourth generation on Robert's side, our fourth generation, Mark and Janice, have 4 daughters. We have a son and a daughter, Lucio and Leah. In fact, Lucio just got married a couple weeks ago in Sicily to a Sicilian girl down there, but is moving to the United States, and we're quite happy about that. Just to complicate the family story in the United States with respect to wineries, once Robert's family sold the Robert Mondavi Winery, Tim and Marcy started Continuum, beautiful winery up in the hills of Napa Valley. Michael started a company called Folio, imported family wineries from around the world, focusing on Italian wineries. So many of you may have heard of Folio and my cousin Michael from that respect. But not to be outdone by the first, second, and third generation. The fourth generation is getting involved with the wine business on their own. 2 of Tim's kids have Rain, a beautiful Pinot Noir series from Sonoma Coast. And then Mark and Janice's 4 daughters have Dark Matter and Aloft, both Napa Valley small brands. And then we do have the 5th generation coming along with Carlos, albeit about two years old, but nevertheless we have the 4th or 5th generation and 80 years of family ownership and involvement in the Napa Valley, California, in the American wine business.
Are you enjoying this podcast? There is so much more high-quality wine content available from Mama Jumbo Shrimp. Check out our new wine study maps, our books on Italian wine, including Italian Wine Unplugged, The Jumbo Shrimp Guide to Italian Wine, Sangiovese Lambrusco and Other Stories, and much, much more on our website, mamajumboshrimp.com. Now back to the show.
So here are our brands. Of course, Charles Krug, the brand that we all originated with. C.K. Mondavi and family started that in the late 40s. That's our California appellation brand, much bigger in volume. Charles Krug is the luxury Napa Valley. We've recently added C.K. Mondavi. And then you see all these others are additions to our export portfolio, ranging in size. Some of these are domestic as well, but Marilisa mentioned Valdo with the Bola family. That started actually the beginning of this year. French Blue from Bordeaux started in early 2020. We have a relationship in Pouliac with Fond Bidet, small, about 3,000 bottles or so. Weston Wilder is actually from the California, Oregon, and Washington area of the United States, and these are actually in cans. So we're really diversifying what we're offering. So with that, I'll sit down and we get into the Q&A.
So, Peter, Why did your family decide to go into the import business, and which country are you focusing in importing? You started with France, now you have Italy, you have different wine producing area that you are interested in.
Yeah, so first of all, why did we get into importing? It's really a reflection of the U.S. market. The U.S. market is, I think some of you or many of you know, is a three-tier system where we have to go through distributors. Now, in recent decades, that distribution network has consolidated considerably. As an example, 30 years ago, in the San Francisco Bay Area in California, we had about 15 or 16 distributors covering this relatively small geographic area. Today, we have one distributor representing us in the entire state of California. That's just one example. So significant consolidation in the distributor. So a distributor is representing more and more wineries, not only domestic, but import wineries as well. And we need to maintain a certain mass, a certain presence in that distributor. And we've had that for years, but we want to expand that because there's also consolidation on the larger size wineries on the supplier side. So the distributors are getting bigger, more consolidated. The bigger wineries are getting bigger within that distributor network, yielding more power. So we need to have more mass in the distribution network is a very important reason for us going into the import business. There's a couple other factors as well, very important factors. And let me call these diversification factors. Two reasons for diversification. One is diversification, I think really as it relates to climate change. As different areas evolve their wine styles with climate change, threats that come about. We suffered in the year 2020 significant fires in Napa Valley. So we just, as our winery, and we own all of our own vineyards, all of our own grapes, we lost 50% of that harvest due to smoke taint. And something you can't predict, something you can't plan for. So diversification from different supplying grapes, wines from different areas of the world is important there. Diversification with respect to the consumer. The consumers are looking for other wine styles, other varieties. They're experimenting way outside of the wine industry, but within the wine industry, we want to have a more diverse offering within our portfolio. So those are kind of the three main reasons.
So the importing business is becoming more and more competitive, and for a wine producer, it's very difficult to get the attention of the distributor. So do you have your own sales force that help and support the distributors?
Yeah, that's a very important point there. We have developed over 80 years a full distribution network relationship throughout all 50 states in the United States, dominated by Southern Glazer's Wine and Spirits, because they are the most dominant distributor in the United States. We also have RNDC, the second dominant distributor in the United States, and a series of others in some of the other states, but principally with those states there. So, and we also have a full sales force distributed throughout the United States that are our employees that both call on, manage the distributors, and also call on accounts, restaurants, and retail stores throughout the major markets in the United States.
And talking about the three-tier system, you know that this make the American market the most competitive one for a wine producer. So there are some producers that decide to go through importer, distributor, and retail, and some producer that decide to go directly to the distributors. What is your feeling about that? What do you think that which choice is better?
Yeah. Yeah, there's many choices, many ways to get in the U.S. market. Some have more opportunities than others. I do think that for distribution, I mean, I think there's two ways to look at it, and this is being very generalized. You can get very small, very specific in small geographic areas and just focus there. But that each geographic area, whether it's New York or Miami or Texas, you kind of have to manage those as separate entities, and you really need to go to the smaller distributors to have a presence in that distributor. But that does limit one's exposure in the marketplace. From our perspective, because we have a very strong relationship with our distributors, and they're eager to take on more offerings that we may bring to the table for them. So it's much easier for us to import a wine and bring it into the Southern Glazer's distribution network. Before we embarked on this program a number of years ago, we sat down with the owners, executives of Southern Glazers, and posed this idea of our increasing our distribution with imported wines, and they're very excited about it.
And do you think that in the future the market will go back to some small regional distributors, or we will be in the hand of this big giant that have big books and very difficult to have the focus for?
Yeah, I think we've already seen some of the development in the sense that the big are getting bigger. And it's much more difficult for smaller wineries to get into that large distribution network. So with that, smaller distributors have started to pop up in key markets around the United States. Which I think is good. It gives the opportunity for smaller wineries to have an introduction, but it's highly restrictive on where they are represented geographically, and also where they're selling to within that market. They have a much more limited exposure to restaurants and retail stores. But it is an avenue for smaller producers. So I think you see the market, let's call it bifurcating. The small distributors, and then you got the big ones.
And what do you think makes a successful supplier-importer business relationship?
So to be successful, I think, in any partnership is open communications, an understanding of both parties, an expectation that is shared between both parties. I'm not going to market by, are the sales up or down? If the expectation it's a challenging market and sales may be down, if both parties go into that year understanding that may be an outcome and communicate that in advance, I think that's good. When the expectations are misunderstood or misaligned is when you have difficulties.
So it's very important to have the same vision, to have the same approach to the business, and to share the values.
Yeah, exactly. The same vision, but very specifically the values. We have some of our values are based around sustainability. That's been mentioned many times in the conference today, but that's an important thing for us is sustainability. We like values that are shared with us, and some of those values. I was referring to those as passion, which has been mentioned again multiple times at the conference. But I went to another seminar unrelated to the wine business, but I think it's more grit. And what I mean by that is passion and perseverance. Because this business, I think, as many of you know, and we've been in it for 80 years, 4 generations. You have to pursue this thing. It's not there's many times when it's not easy, and you have to be able to get through those times.
And what is for a wine producer the biggest challenge when starting the exporting to the U.S.?
So let me address that from our perspective, representing a potential, a new import business. I think it's just a logistical challenge. If it's an existing, and we've experienced this several times, if it's an existing brand that has some level of footprint or import into the United States, understanding the inventory position, where their product is sold, currently being sold or has been sold in the United States in the various markets, the pricing structure in the various markets. We've actually been quite surprised in that the supplier winery, the winery from Italy or from France or wherever it might be, has very little knowledge of this detailed information, which we consider very important. And we take the approach of being more transparent and engaged with our partners so they understand where the inventory is, where the wines are being sold, the pricing. So that's a challenge in the transition. It takes quite some time to move through those inventories and figure out where they are and what vintages they are. It's just a logistical transitional problem.
And sometimes business relationship between importer and the producer fail. Do you have an idea what is the main reason why this thing happen? Because the value is not shared at in the same way?
So far, we are relatively new in the import business, starting in 2020. So we have not actually crossed that path yet. We hope we don't, but it probably may be inevitable. We'll see. But I do think, and this is something we strive for, I think it's a lack or a breakdown in communication, and that's a common theme I'll be saying here. Communication and expectation between the two parties. It's a partnership, and you have to understand the expectations. Both parties have to be unified on that. And when they diverge from that I think is when you get problems, diverge and cannot reconcile. That's when you get these problems.
So it's very important to have a very good communication before and to have the expectation that is agreed between the parties.
Yeah, that's very important to have that. And the other thing we look for is for wineries, suppliers to come over, work with us, work in the U.S. market. So they have and it was mentioned, I think, earlier in one of the presentations about ambassadors. So it's a form of how they get knowledge of the marketplace, in addition to sitting down on regular quarterly meetings, things like that. And I think you mentioned earlier, we started our formal relationship importing Valdo for the Bolla family starting January of this year. The son, Matteo Bolla, actually lives in Miami and works the U.S. market for us. So he's dedicated for us, but he's also a direct link to the family. He is family. So that's, I think, an extreme example of coming over to the United States and working with it. We don't expect that, but it's an interesting relationship we have with the Bolas.
So for a wine producer, I remember before the COVID, it was very common for me, but for many others, to come to the US, I don't know, 5, 6, 7 times per year to promote the property, to promote the wine, to talk with the trade, but also with the consumer. After the COVID, with the COVID, we experienced that the conference call can also be effective. Do you think that is important to come back again and to have this relationship with final consumers, with collectors, with the retailers?
Oh, absolutely. I think face-to-face is essential. That does not mean we've stopped the Zoom meetings. We still do Zoom meetings as well, but I think that face-to-face interaction, it's difficult to replace that. In fact, as we embark on new partnerships here in Italy, my wife and I spent a couple weeks here some months ago visiting prospective partners, and we did that because we wanted a face-to-face interaction. Sit down over wine, break bread, see the facilities, see the passion behind it. And so, yes, those are coming back.
And I know that in your property you have a beautiful hospitality business. Do you think that for an Italian wine producer is also very important to develop this part and to invite customers, of course, from all over the world, but especially the Americans that are big travelers?
Yeah, I think, us in Napa Valley, I think we have a few years head start on the visitors coming. It's quite a vibrant business for us and for many of the people, many of the wineries in Napa Valley. I see our experience here in Italy in recent visits in recent years is there are parts of Italy starting to embrace this, bringing customers in. And, I think, I know the Italian market is a very important destination for American travelers. And food and wine are, I think, integral to most of those visits. So I do think that is an important aspect. But I think in some more of the remote areas, there's still more infrastructure to be put in because some areas, as gorgeous as they are, takes more effort to visit.
I know that you're coming from Sicily because your son got married there, and there was this movie that recently came out that attracted many Americans. So I think that each region should develop some interesting thing to have more and more visitors. Because my opinion is that when they come to our wineries, they come as a consumer, and when they go away, they are friends. And so it's important to develop this part of the business in the company.
Yeah, and I think you bring up a very good point there. It's not just a tasting. What we in Napa Valley have evolved to, and what you're doing as well, is an experience. So visitors come in, they don't walk up to the bar and get 2 glasses or 3 glasses of wine, try them, and then leave. It's Napa Valley is pretty much, and it was going this direction, and then COVID forced it this direction. But it's pretty much mostly by appointment only. And when you come to Napa Valley to a winery, you make your appointment, you can expect to spend an hour, 2 hours there with a much more in-depth experience, typically often, one-on-one with someone from the winery. And that's what people are looking for, especially the younger people are looking for, a very authentic experience. And I know the wine regions of Italy can definitely deliver that.
When you can, do you take personal care of some customers?
Oh, sometimes, from time to time.
We were covering before the subject of the new consumer, so the young generation. You have a very historical winery. Allegrini is also an historical winery. And we have our consumers, we have our collectors that every year purchase our wines. But one of the big question is how can we approach the new generation of consumers? In your family, in your company, in your market, do you have a suggestion to all of us?
I wish I did have a complete suggestion on that. That's one that the industry is struggling with. But in our portfolio, we have Weston Wilder, which is in cans, which does skew more towards the younger group. French Blue, it's kind of a fun Bordeaux Rosé and a Bordeaux White. Now we have a Bordeaux Red in there, moderately priced. But it's a fun, easy, pronounceable name. So that kind of draws in the younger generation as well. There's no silver bullet, no one thing we can do. I think it's many things like these two examples I just threw out that many wineries have to do to entice the younger generation in. And we're really struggling with the many options that they have for adult beverages. And Danny this morning went through that, have a very good example of that, is the choices they have today are far, far more than we had a few decades ago. And they're experimenting with all these choices. So we need to figure out how to, put the wines back into their experimenting portfolio. I think part of it is the examples I did here. I think also some of the interesting varietals from Italy that have been here for, generations, yet they may be new to some of these more younger consumers who are looking for something interesting, something different.
Okay, I don't know if from the audience there are some questions for Peter.
So my question is, what does a very small boutique winery here in Italy do that's new to break into the American market? And I understand this is a seminar about importer relations, but if we were to import wine, my wife and I have a new winery in Alto Piemonte. We're from Connecticut in the States. So what do we do to break into the market, get wines exported, and have an importer and a distributor pay attention to us when we're only going to produce 10 to 15,000 bottles a year?
Yes, that's a big challenge. I think, as I kind of alluded to earlier, first of all, you have to kind of carve out your niche. And it was mentioned in one of the seminars earlier, what is your differentiation point versus some of the other wineries in your region? What's the story behind it? What's the legacy? Things like that. What really differentiates you? What's the authenticity there that will separate you from the others in both the consumers and also the buyers of, I'm sure you'd probably be more fine wine stores and fine restaurants as well. So differentiation is important. I think that's the first thing you want to do, is define that selling story there. And then from there, you seek out, we have kind of a ready-made distribution system, but you can seek out specific markets that through research you think are more have more opportunities for your wine, for the style of wine. Obviously, I would think, where there's heavy Italian concentrations, New York would be an obvious one. Chicago would be another one. Others in the United States. And then probably seek out a small distributor that you have a bigger presence in. But be forewarned that smaller distributors can be more financially precarious. So just use that as, you have to look at their history, their portfolio, their success, so on and so forth, to get a comfort from that region, that aspect. But I think with small production, cherry picking some key markets that have the potential, and then seeking out unique importers / distributors in those markets.
So, Peter, I don't want to flood your inbox. It's Stevie right here. Okay. But I'm assuming you're going to expand your portfolio because you've just started as an importer. Is that correct?
Yes.
So in the perfect world, what kind of Italian wine producers are you looking for?
So we're looking for Italian wine producers that share our passion, our grit, as I talked about earlier, have a legacy, have something unique in their area. Quality wine is a given. Yeah, we need that in there. But a family that's truly engaged, like our family is, like the Bola family is. And then we're also looking for complementary wines to our portfolio. So with representation around various parts of Italy, because Italy has a myriad of wine growing areas to represent. So looking for kind of a broader spectrum throughout Italy. When I mentioned my wife and I traveled Italy, we were in Sicily, Marche, Tuscany, Puglia, Piemonte in a week or so. So as an example of...
I'm assuming you're interested in those markets as well. Is that
Yes.
Okay. What about quantity? Because, of course, Valdo, they produce a large quantity in terms of volume. Are you looking for other producers who are fairly large in size?
This really looking at the spectrum. Valdo was interesting because of Prosecco. Their family history parallels ours, but the Prosecco is obviously very explosive in the United States. So that's very, very interesting. Generally, we're looking for price points that are in the upper teens and up. Volume-wise, we really don't have the constraints on volume size. As an example, the Puglia property is about 3,000 bottles. And so in the distribution network, and let me talk to Southern Glaciers principally because they represent about 60%, a little over 60% of our sales in the United States. That excludes direct-to-consumer. They have multiple divisions within a given state or a given market. And the smaller wines will most likely find their way into their elite division. They have different names, but essentially the elite division. Whereas if it's a larger production, Valdo is an example of a larger production, they would go in the more commercial book or sales team.
Okay, great. Are there any other questions? Okay, you're pretty close.
So regarding the wines in cans, like for the brand Westwalder, I suppose there are wines that follow more modern trends like the decreasing of carbon footprints. So for those type of wines and cans, what I would like to know if you consider also the buying of bulk wines that for the transport they decrease the carbon footprint. So do you just consider bottled wines, or do you consider also possibility to import bulk wines?
Currently, everything is imported bottled. However, I push our management team that when you get to the volume and the opportunity looks good, we have a very modern Italian bottling line that does an exceptionally good job of getting the wine into the bottle. Minimal oxygen pickup, and so it's an exceptional bottling line. And I'm pushing our team to get to the point where we can start to bring in wine in bladders in bulk and do the bottling at the winery. I think for two reasons. One, quality and carbon footprint as well.
Okay, are there any other dire questions? Okay, great. We're going to wrap it up. Let's give it up for Peter Mondavi and also Marilisa Allegrini.
Listen to the Italian Wine Podcast wherever you get your podcasts. We're on SoundCloud, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Himalaya FM, and more. Don't forget to subscribe and rate the show. If you enjoy listening, please consider donating through ItalianWinePodcast.com. Any amount helps cover equipment, production, and publication costs. Until next time, cin cin.